Well, welcome to Fintech Impact. I'm your host, Jason Pereira. Today's show, I have a different one for you. I've got Diana Cabrices, founder of Diana Cabrices Consulting. Bang on name, what can I say? And Diana is, as I like to call her, the chief hype woman of the fintech industry in the US. And we'll get into what that is and what's involved with that, and basically talk really about how she can help businesses amplify what it is they do. And with that, here's my interview with Diana. Diana, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much for making the time.
Well,
this is so cool we get to do it in person.
Exactly, yes. For background noise, if you can pick up on it, we are at the Wealth Management Edge conference in Florida in May, and this might be airing at some point during the summer because I'm so backlogged, but nevertheless, it's always great to do this in person. So, Diana Cabrices, tell us about what it is you do.
Yeah, so I help fintech companies, wealth tech companies, solutions providers for financial advisors. I help them amplify their brand through creative marketing, storytelling, and the brand evangelism, which most people don't really know what that means. And so brand evangelism is all about going out into the market. I like to say I'm a charismatic torchbearer, and I go out in the market and I light it up with not just the product you sell, but also the problem that you solve. And again, doing it in a fun and creative and dynamic way. I've found a lot of tech companies, they're all busy, right? Founders are raising money. COOs are operating the business. Salespeople are trying to build sales funnels. And it can be often difficult to be everywhere all the time, to show up on social media, to create video content, to get in person, to go on stage, to build really compelling and engaging content. So I come in as an outsourced, but very much an extension of the team, and I do that for them.
Excellent. So we'll dive into that in a second. Let's talk about your history. How'd you get into this?
Yeah, so my history in the space starts in about 2016 when I started working for a company called Succession Link at the time. And Succession Link was all about buying, merging, and selling financial advisory practices. So I would smile and dial financial advisors all day long. Hey, do you want to sell your business? Do you want to buy a business? And basically play
Thank you for your service. I mean, my goodness, like, oh man, that must have been painful.
Time to bounce out. And they're like, I'm never retiring. What are you talking about? So I did that for a few years, and then I moved on to another company where it was all about benefits for financial advisors. And so you pay a price, and in exchange you get discounts across all the best tech in the space, and group health insurance rates, even though you're a one-man shop RIA. That was really cool. It gave me exposure to learning about all the tech in the space, because in order to sell that membership, I had to sell the value of why you would want the membership, because you're going to get this discount to this planning tool, and here's what the planning tool does. I remember I got trained by Orion. The team at Orion trained me on their solution, and I was like, this is complex. But I had to learn. Yeah, like, what is that? But I did that, and then I moved on to Snappy Kraken, marketing tech company for advisors. I spent a little under 4 years there in various roles, but really hands-on, getting out in the marketplace and speaking. And that's when that aha moment came up for me, Jason, was I'd go to speak on stage, I'd come off, a CEO would practically chase me down, and they'd say, hey, how much do I have to pay you to do that for my business? That was really good what you just did out there. Like, I need a Diana. And I knew that. I was like, I got something here.
That's it. Everybody needs a hype woman. Basically, it's not what people think of as conventional marketing, right? Because the evangelism is literally evangelism. You're out there basically taking their messaging, and you are the advocate. You are out there not just talking a story like a CEO on a stage. You're figuring out how to craft it like not just as a marketing expert, but one who's basically literally a representative of that company. So, and that falls outside of what a lot of conventional marketing is, because a lot of conventional marketing is, what is your content? What is your distribution channel? What is all that? Like those conventional channels, not the human being, the one out there advocating. And that's where it takes a skill set to talk in front of people and convince them to do that sort of thing. So that's what you got in spades. Okay, so let's talk about what it is to work with you. So let's say I am an advisor technology company. And by the way, you have to put up with advisors your entire career, so I'm desperately sorry for that.
It's been fun.
I was just like, ooh, your entire career. Oh, it's brutal. So I'm an advisor technology company, and let's say, perfect example, when I introduced you to here, I'm not going to specific why, but I'm going to say why I did it. And not only do I have a solution that I need to have marketed, but I've got to have people understand why it is that they need to do something or educate them on what the problem is. You step in, what is it you do for them?
Yeah, one of the first things I do is my homework, right? So I start diving in deep.
Yeah.
What are customers saying? Give me all of your call recordings from your sales team. Like, I need to hear the voice of the customer. Okay, and of course, yes, send me your marketing kit, if you will. What is your value prop? What's your tagline? What's your slogan? Who are you targeting? Who are you not targeting? So really looking at what the go-to-market is, what the positioning is, and then what the customer's saying. And so then I get to come in and get creative, and I say, this is the type of positioning that I would lead with, because I think this is where you have the most value from your company. And I also think this is what advisors want the most, the voice of the advisor, right? So I'll come in and do a variety of different activities, but I have 3 goals. My 3 goals are to drive awareness, to create demand, and to also generate leads.
Fair enough.
Everybody wants more leads, right? So that's why we're all here at the end of the day. We all run for-profit
It's all
businesses.
revenue. Yep.
Exactly. That can happen in a variety of ways. Perhaps it's launching webinars. And so I have found webinars to be one of the best ways to educate financial advisors on new tactics and new solutions and strategies. But do it in a way that's fun, again, engaging, educating, and then get them to say, hey, like, that was really good. I want to learn more about that. So it creates that sort of demand and lead generation pipeline all in one. So I host a lot of webinars. If you've ever seen me on LinkedIn, you see me talking about a session that I'm going to host. But they're engaging webinars. They're not just selling something. They're talking about 10 strategies to host really successful events in 10 minutes, right? Example. And then I also come in and I want to start interviewing customers. So let's get your customer's voice literally out on the front lines. That's
so
your
people can
best
relate to them,
testimonial.
right? Yeah. If you want people to say, that's me, that's my problem.
Exactly. That is all about relatability. I had a whole keynote that I built out on the relatability factor. If advisors want to be relatable, they can do that in their own marketing. But for the fintechs, that is also how they become more relatable, because advisors say exactly what you just said. I have that problem.
Exactly.
So I'll interview customers. We'll get that content on the front lines. A lot of social media, a lot of also building presentations for the stage. So I'm going to speak this week for one of my clients in Scottsdale, and I built the entire presentation. And again, that was based on all the listening and the question asking that I'm doing, and then putting it into a really engaging piece of content that I'll go and take the stage and present myself. Branding, marketing, lead generation, demand generation, it's all happening in one here, and I am bringing the life to the go-to-market strategy.
Excellent. And in a very sunny and approachable way, which is great.
Yeah.
I think that's one of your strengths, is basically you don't make it seem intimidating. You make it seem completely accessible, which I think is exactly like where a lot of tech companies go wrong. They want to show off their feature set and how much they can do. And you're on feature number 47, and I'm getting a headache because I don't want to work on 47 different features. But you don't do that. You cut to the heart of what the actual underlying need is and how fast it solves that.
And I'd love to give you an example of that.
Please.
So I was representing one of my clients at a big conference about a year ago, 6,000 advisors at this conference. And we have a demo going on the screen. We've got a big TV with the product, and we're demoing all the features. And advisors would come over and would say, just tell me how you're different. They just wanted to get to the crux of it, right?
Yeah.
And all I had to start saying was, you can get what you need to get done in 2 clicks here versus 7 clicks over there. And it was instant for them. Oh, yes, sign me up for that. I want that. And
you spoke to the actual physical and cognitive pain that they were experiencing with one sentence.
Yes. And I love being at conferences. I love being at the booth. Most people wouldn't say I love working a booth all day long. And there's times where I get tired. But I actually love being out there and getting the crowd of advisors in and talking and again, getting to the crux. And they're those aha moments are just firing off for everybody.
That's it. I mean, it's the exact same tactics on the other side for the advisors, right? If we find the one thing or the one problem in the client's life that they desperately have bothering them, and we can say, no, your issue is this, and we can solve it by doing this. And they're like, oh my God, you understand me, right? You're bringing that level of understanding of the problems that we have to your marketing.
Yep.
And it's, again, I use the word marketing, but really evangelism is so much better, because I think the key difference for me is one is, here, buy my stuff. You're telling the story of why it fixes the problem.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. So how much of what you're doing would you say is also educating them about the problem or raising their awareness of the problem?
There's a good bit of that. I like to say I come in and try to, as much as I can as one single person, but I do like to try to create a movement around what you're doing. And in order to do that, you have to educate on the problem. So a lot of what I do is educational. I launched a series for one of my clients called Seminar Smarts in 60 Seconds, right? And I could sit there and say, at White Glove, we do this. When we solve for X, and here's the ROI that you're going to get. But instead, I'm coming out and I'm saying, hey, have you ever tried to host an event like you fell flat at the end of your event and nobody wanted
Anyone
to
who's
actually
ever tried to
move
do that's
forward?
had a failure. Yeah.
Absolutely. People can instantly say, yeah, that's totally me. Again, going back to relatability. And so I'll say instead, use this tip instead. In the beginning, my clients were like, hey, what is this really doing for us? We're not like directing people to take action right away. And I'm like, we have times and places for that. But in this instance, we just want to keep it solely educational. That is the goal here, is people need to start, we're planting seeds, if you will. Advisors need to start even grasping on this concept that maybe they're going to try doing another event in person in the future. Mm-hmm. But it's a bit of a mixture. I would say 75% education, 25% is where I'm, all right, let's take this next step together. And here's how you do that. Yep. And talk to my team and let's do a strategy session. So again, if you put an X right now visually in your head and you have sales, marketing, partnerships, and even like PR on one end, I'm sitting in the middle, but leaning a little bit more on the marketing side.
Excellent. Let's take a step back and look at the value proposition you bring to these companies. You've explained it already, but what's their feedback? When you come in and they believe that you can hype them up and you can basically get the attention, do they like have their own aha moment of, oh man, we haven't been looking at this right? Like what are they telling you?
Oh yeah. They start to see the results with the webinars, for example, and they're like, oh my gosh, like this is working really well. Like the sales leader is calling me and being like, you made our week. The entire sales team hasn't stopped getting calls all day long because you did this webinar on this topic. And like, I can never take all the credit for everything. I do a lot of the work. I come up with the content. I create the slides. I pretty much conduct a lot. But there's teams helping me do that, so it's a team effort.
Well, and they've got to deliver, right? Like you're not gonna sell people.
They're not going to sell if they don't take those strategy sessions that I'm basically educating and amplifying on these webinars. So I think that's one of the aha moments. It's like, why didn't we do this sooner? This is such a great partnership to our sales team, who sometimes they're just waiting around to get leads from marketing, or we're going stale on these certain months of the year, and we can have somebody really advocating for us. I also think that my clients have found it refreshing to be at events with me and see the way that I communicate with people and how I position what they do. And they're like, that's such a cool way of saying it. I never thought about saying it that way. So that's fun. I love words, so. It's
funny, I just had earlier this week, I ran into Joel Bruckenstein, who's been on the show, the godfather of advisor technology, and he introduced me to this. I was talking to someone else who basically did this kind of direct indexing portfolio management type solution. I asked him, what do you do? And he went through this diatribe, and Joel's just smiling, and Joel's, let me fix this. He said 2 sentences, and just, this is why you hire the man, right? Like, at the end of the day, it's the technology, like what we do when we're entrepreneurs, we own the entire thing, right? We want to talk about the entire thing, and then we can do this, and we can solve that, and we can whatever. And it's just, we overwhelm, and understanding how to approach it, which is what you're doing. And again, how to craft that message. I'm not surprised, because we get so caught up in our own stuff.
It's hard to talk about yourself. Like, it's harder to sit there and dig inside of what you've been building and constantly thinking about all the time and pull out something fresh. You need somebody from the outside doing that.
You're doing the epitome of the old Mark Twain letter where he said, I was listening. It was, I wanted to write you a short letter, but didn't have time, so I wrote you a long one. It's really hard to be succinct and really get to the point. And or the old saying, if it takes you 5 minutes, longer than 5 minutes to explain a concept, you don't understand it well enough. Effective communication is really difficult. And our attention spans, you can blame social media all you want, but I don't think we ever had attention spans.
No, right? I
agree. Excellent. All right, so talk to me about the successes you've had. Where do you feel like you knocked it out of the park and they've been super happy with you? I'm sure it's all of them, but continue.
I feel like every client is a different experience. And some clients, like, I'm such a smaller part of a bigger organization, and other clients, I'm a really big part of the small organization. But equally, I'd say there was a comment made by one of my clients recently. They said, even though you're part-time, you are very much full-time. We feel the big impact that you've made on our company. And that was really cool to hear, because the fractional thing is part of this entire business. Like, I didn't just launch a chief evangelist business. I'm doing it with multiple companies at once, part-time, fractionally. So there was always that concern of, can I make enough impact? And I'm passionate about not putting all my eggs into one basket. And so I like to have the spread. But hearing that comment was pretty great validation for me. Okay, something's happening. I'd also just say, like, introductions that I've made for some of my clients who wouldn't have had
you have an extensive network that's just like super valuable.
And they're like, the enterprise introductions are a really big deal. And again, I think going back to the sales team, like, just the feedback I get from the sales leaders.
It's something the conference circuit is very valuable for, is just those networking opportunities. So something comes to mind that I think you must hear as a reluctance, but then I actually think is a strength. And it's you're out there marketing for 5 different companies, right? Like we're just number 6. Diana's marketing for everybody, right? And I think some people may think, I want someone to do that full time. They may think that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just, A, you're incredibly effective. But more importantly, I think the fact that you're doing it for more people is a positive, right? Because it's your brand rubs off on their brand.
Yep.
And the fact that, oh, this is who she's representing, and she's representing these 5 or 6 companies, I think it's almost like your awareness creates their awareness.
Yep.
Yeah.
We feed off of each other, honestly. They help me, I help them. And then if I can tell stories that bring everything together, like one of my clients does event marketing for advisors, and one of my clients does compliant testimonials for advisors. And if you're hosting an event, guess what people are going to do after that event? They're going to look you up and see what other people are saying about you.
Yep.
So it's a beautiful combination. And actually, just to make a correction, I couldn't even do 6 clients at once. My head would explode. So I actually only take on about 3 clients at one time, like full-time, like full-blown fractional chief evangelism. And then maybe I'll do some content collabs here and there. I'm the host of Financial Advisor TV speed demos. So there's like maybe once a quarter we're working with a fintech company. But even that's hard because I'm quickly having to absorb all their content, their messaging, their demos, and then come out with something creative. I love the more like, hey, you're like part of my core offering and we're going to go into this next 12 months together and I'm going to dive all into what you do and wear that brand hat of yours everywhere I go. So about 3 at once is all this brain can handle.
Knowing your limitations is valuable.
Yes,
incredibly
absolutely.
Valuable. Yeah, no, absolutely. And frankly, it might just be at a certain position of their growth where they need to basically evangelize the fact that they made this big change and they need to get it out there. They may want to bring you on for a period of time, and that flexibility you have is incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. And I like a new challenge. And I think at some point it's okay to say what we've done is great and you guys have somebody in your company that is also doing a good job with this. I've had a client in the past where I started to buddy up with one of their employees and teach him my ways, and I learned things from him, certainly. He was an expert at the product, so we made a great duo. But I think over time, like, it was really evident to me he could go out and shine on his own on their behalf using some of the more educational perspectives that I was taking, and he's doing a great job now.
You know, if you had a piece of advice to give fintech firms besides hire you, let's just imagine that you got your 3 and you're booked up, like. Okay. What is it that they should be thinking about in terms of their marketing that they're conventionally not thinking about doing?
Okay. I am a big fan of sort of this show up everywhere method, at least in the beginning.
Stanza, sorry. It's just like this, the Seinfeld episode just comes to mind. Become an earworm for them.
Yes, right? Exactly. You have to look at your go-to-market strategy. Every go-to-market playbook is going to say, like, we want to do this, like these maybe webinars or these partnerships, or we're going to show up at these conferences. But, like, really decide who your most dynamic people are to do those things. You're wasting your time and your money if you're sending someone flat. And I hate
you don't
to
want
say
an introvert sitting behind the booth.
No, what's the point?
And that's fine. They can be totally good at other stuff, but do not put them out there in a position where they need to network and sell. That's not
exactly.
Work. Yeah.
You need your most dynamic people. And also, if your content strategy is all blogs, like, that is really good for SEO, but, like, people aren't seeing you or feeling your energy. You need video to complement that. So humanizing the go-to-market, I'm a big proponent of.
I believe that because just even my own experience, it's like stuff I publish or stuff I've done, and then people will see me at events or something like that and come up maybe like, and have that human conversation. And maybe that's something that gets them over a nudge of whatever else they're doing or desire to join something or whatever. Like, it's creating the opportunity to close because maybe they're reading what you're doing in passing and they see a lot of it, but they just suddenly let's have a conversation because I really like your work. And then it's, oh, wow, I've been reading this stuff. I'm actually a candidate to buy what it is you do. I should just pull the trigger. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
So true.
Well done. Mm-hmm. So before we wrap up, I have 3 questions. I like to ask everybody to wrap on a positive note.
Okay.
And the first one is if you had one wish for something you can change in your company, which is you, or the industry as a whole, which is probably the right answer, what would it be?
Oh, gosh. One wish to change the industry as a whole would be to it's already happening, but I want it to see it more full scale, like really break through the boys club. And I love the boys, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But there have definitely been times where I have felt like I'm not invited, or I didn't get into that circle, or this isn't happening for me in my business because the people, like the real true big decision makers, there's a lot of boys club going on.
There is, and still an older boys club too.
Yes, and an older boys club, exactly. And so I think just if I could wave a magic wand, that would be not broken up, more diverse.
Yeah.
That's my wish.
It's interesting. I'd say it's unfortunate we have to have that conversation at this day and age, but I would also say that, again, I always contrast my home country to here. What I find incredibly encouraging coming down here is the number of strong female voices that I see in the U.S. industry who I meet up and become friends with at conferences, and you guys support each other on a beautiful, wonderful level. And back home, and this is for any women listening to this, okay, you're not talking enough. There's the number, and even the social media stuff I do back home, or like we even started a kind of an aggregator for like advisor content in Canada. We struggle for female voices. There's not enough content being generated. There's not enough of them stepping up. Yes, unfortunately, you will take slings and arrows. You will get sexist jerks coming at you.
Yep.
I have told off more than one prick, pardon my language, on Twitter who came after one of my friends. That's like, you will have people defend you. But the reality is that it ain't going to get better unless there's representation and those voices are there. And it's always incredibly, as much as you think it's bad here, Diana, it's worse elsewhere.
Wow.
Okay?
I believe, and I think we are making a lot of progress here.
I feel it every time I come down here. I feel it every time I hang out with you ladies. I feel it every time I see you guys being marketing up front. And so
that's why I'm going to keep showing up.
Yeah, you should. It's inspiring. As a girl dad, it means more to me. So second question I have for you is, what's been the hardest part about getting where you are today?
Not believing in myself. Feeling as though, like I'll say this. I think everything needed to happen for me the way it did to get to where I am today. I don't regret a single step that I've taken. But I think that if I would have maybe realized sooner what my capabilities were, maybe there are other things that I could have done already. But I'm also really happy with what I've accomplished. So I'm not saying this out of, oh, I wish I could have done this. I'm saying it out of, wow, if you would have known this sooner, imagine what you could have done.
So I have this joke about I'm not going to generalize this as women, because I think most people I know in my life have some semblance of imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Myself included.
Yep.
And especially when you start moving in circles where people get more and more impressive around you, you're going to feel that all the time. And I like to say that, look, you got two choices. You got imposter syndrome and being a sociopath. Those are the spectrums, right? That's the spectrum. And I would much rather people be on the other side. So yeah, what you're saying, it's common. I think a lot of us struggle with it. Maybe I could have just been more if I tried more, but like, you're doing it, right? That's the key. You may have done it sooner, but you're happy with where you are.
Can I add one thing to that answer?
You can add whatever you like.
Okay. Also, something I would do differently. I spent so many years like waking up, no water, black coffee, hours, sitting down, meeting. Like then I'd finally maybe eat some lunch here or there, like very sporadic, just totally crashing my health for business and like achievement. Yeah. And now I realize what a mistake that was, because it's taken its toll on my body, and I've had to fight to get my health
And you're doing
back.
well on that.
It's going great.
Yes.
But even like this week is a lot on the body. I'm like, I need to rest right now. But I'm loving it, because I don't do this all the time. Yes. So I would go back and I'd also say, you better learn to balance this, because it's going to get crazy later if you don't. So I'm in a place now where I'm in so much more balance. Maybe it just comes with age. I don't know. Again, everything happens the way it needs to, but health, prioritizing that while you're busting it and like really just going after your dreams, those need to happen together.
Yeah, hustle culture is not positive.
Drink water, eat breakfast.
Oh my God. Limit alcohol to parties and conferences.
Yes, that too.
Yes, exactly, right? So no, I'm with you on that. It's something, it'll creep up on you faster than you can think, and your entire world will recognize that. So I've seen that. And then next thing you know, you go for blood tests and they find things you didn't even know you had. Oh my God.
Like, surprise.
Yes, I was very surprised when they found out I was hypothyroid.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. That explains everything.
Yes.
Anyway, so then the last question I have for you to wrap up on is, what gets you out of bed in the morning, keeps you motivated to fight the good fight?
Oh, goodness. That's a big question.
Yep.
Okay. So honestly, it really, I am not a mom. I don't have kids. I'm not even married yet. But what gets me out of bed is my family, because my family, coming from two immigrant parents, okay, there's a lot of story and background there. There was a lot of struggle and fight and hustle and bravery to literally get this generation that I'm in into a better position. And so I wake up and I'm like, that for me is a huge motivator. Like, I have two sisters, and they're not where I am in their own lives or careers, not because they just couldn't. It's just maybe some by choice, or we went on different paths.
Yeah.
But I, as the youngest, I feel like to be such a big support for them and a role model for them and their kids now, because they have kids. And even my mom, who's just always watching me like, oh, I'm so proud of you. This is so freaking cool what you're doing. I can't believe this. My mom actually stuttered a lot as a kid. So for her to
see you out there, like
this,
literally speaking publicly.
Yeah, she's like, can't believe it. Yeah. So they really do inspire me. Our father passed away when I was a baby. So in a way, I feel like I took on that energy from him and I became that figure for my family. So again, I'm not married. I have no kids. And I'm sure that will
you're the
shift.
kick-ass auntie that the girls are going to look forward to.
Yes, that really motivates me a lot.
Good answer. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Jason. This has been lovely.
So that was my interview with Diana. I hope you enjoyed that because frankly, how could you not? And as always, if you enjoyed this podcast, please review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, take care.
This podcast was brought to you by Woodgate Financial, an award-winning financial planning firm catering to high net worth individuals and their families. To learn more, go to woodgate.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, or find more episodes at jasonpereira.ca.